Now, individual bondholders have by close of day today to sign up to the debt exchange program or lose their investment. Government had earlier warned their investment will be worth nothing if they fail to sign up, even though the deal has been described as voluntary. The aim of the program is to make the nation's debt sustainable as a key component to securing an IMF bailout. But the bondholders say the deal is unfavorable and are vehemently opposed to it. Senor Hossi is the convener of the Coalition of Individual Bondholders. He spoke on the probe with MFA Apau last night.
Say no to DDE. Hashtag say no to DDE. Nothing will happen to you. There's a contract in place between you and the state. That is why they've brought you the document for you to accept. If they could do it on their own, the way they are throwing their hands and saying that your thing will be worthless, why did they come to you for you to agree? Think about it. Think about it. Our legal team is clear. They themselves are clear. The Attorney General is clear. Gabi Ochridakun, who is speaking and posting those things, he is clear. But you're on an agenda for what? In all these things, everybody is supporting the concept. Are we taking a haircut? We're not taking a haircut. You have increased taxes. Have you seen anybody go on demonstration? No. When we introduced VAT, what did they do? When Rollins introduced VAT, what did they do? Today, where is VAT? You've gone there, and nobody is complaining. We are cooperative citizens. Some of us voted this party into office because we believed in their attitudes and the culture, only to find something different. Nobody has a problem. You want to solve a problem, everybody understands you have a problem. But first of all, understand your problem. You've gone accruing a lot more debt. Your net borrowings from 2017 to now is over 170 billion. Question, what did you use the money for? Only 1/3 of that money went into capital expenditure. It is capital expenditure that's supposed to spur your growth. So that's supposed to drive productivity on your revenue, on your entire growth as an economy. What did you do with 2/3 of the money? Economic consumption. When you manage funds like that, why won't you be in trouble? And where is this consumption going? You look at the size of government. You add on about 300,000 people into the entire public sector workforce. Over this time, job for the boys. Our public sector has not been productive for a long time. What are we adding more people into for? When you do that, you move a lot more money in there, and there's less capital for private sector, which is the productive sector in this economy, to really thrive. That's why government, if you look at government share of GDP, it is growing. Because right now, there's only one big boy in the house. But that is not what an NPP government, a center-right government, a property-owning democracy is about. I don't recognize this party at all. At all. And I don't think that if they are honest with themselves, they will recognize their own party. And I think people should be adults in that room and bring wisdom and sanity to bear on the party. Because we are lost on totally lost on what this party is about. You think about a center-right government, you think about a lean government. That empowers its people. And that's what Kufuor was talking about. That's what Kufuor was talking about. He was talking about the productivity of the people. What do we have now? A very fat government, a very fat ministerial populace, a very fat presidential set of staffers. Doing what? Spending time tweeting and insulting citizens of the state.
Okay.
Please, let's get...
But just before the door is shut, an economist and professor of finance at the University of Ghana, Godfrey Bokpin, is calling on government to extend the deadline and review the terms and conditions. According to him, efforts by the state to lessen the economic crisis must not affect individuals and the private sector.
In the interest of nation building, that we are able to carry everybody along. In as much as we agree, and I've said before that where we find ourselves, there is no way government can meet its future financial obligations as and when they fall due without sharp adjustment to its fiscal in terms of expenditure and revenue, and then the financing mix, right? And therefore, a certain level of debt restructuring we should be able to accept as Ghanaians, right? So that we can come out of this together, because the impact of macroeconomic instability would again erode the value of those existing bonds. So if we're able to restructure and restore macroeconomic stability, it preserves the value for everyone, whether we like it or not. Without even government applying the debt exchange, we have already suffered some haircuts because of high inflation that has practically rendered the real return on all instruments across all government securities to be negative. We ended 2022 with inflation of 54.1%, right? So there's conventional wisdom in restoring macroeconomic stability and bring so that we're able to also enter a process of disinflation, because low inflation in itself is desirable. That said, we are a bit surprised the scope and the approach that government has adopted. And I think that the approach itself makes it a bit more painful, much more than how much people are going to lose, right? And the reason I'm saying that the approach makes it much more painful is that we are doing something that looks as though we are under a military rule, but we are under democracy. Under property-owning democracy, you could not tear through people's property and investment the way we are doing, right? So to that extent, what then is important is a certain level of consensus building. Now, the reason the consensus building is fundamental is that if you look at the time period that government has proposed that some people will get their last installment in 2038. Wow, that's just too long, right?
Now we'll revert to this story later on, but a police officer has perished with his wife and child when fire swept through the apartment at a police barracks at Apromase in the Ejusu municipality of Ashanti region. Sergeant Owusu Asante Befi of the anti-robbery unit of the Ashanti Regional Police Command, together with his wife Yaechia and their 3-month-old baby, burnt to death in Sunday night disaster. It is unclear what caused the fire, but personnel of the Ghana Fire Service were at the scene to douse the flame as they begin investigations. Love News have gathered the bodies were conveyed to the morgue by the police. This is the third major fire incident in the region in the past 3 days. Nanayao Jima is following up on the story and joins us live with more. Nanayao, describe to us what you have observed on your arrival.
Samuel, it's very difficult hearing here, but I guess you are asking me about the situation on the ground. Now, behind me is the police barracks here at Apromase. It has 3 separate story buildings, each of them housing these police officers. Now, the one in the middle, behind me, the one in the middle, the whole of the top floor is where the incident happened. The fire gutted the whole of the floor. Every apartment within the floor was destroyed by the fire. Now, the first one from your left, the information that I've gathered so far is where the policeman who has lost his life and the wife, as well as the 4-month-old, lived. So the information I have is that the fire, it's unclear where the fire started, but the information I have is that that room was the one which was badly affected by the fire. Now, within the building is the whole of the police service. That's the top officials in the region. The people who matter are all in the building trying to do their own assessment. The fire service also walked in not long ago with a crack team. Information that I've gathered so far is that very soon they're expecting the IGP here at the facility to assess the situation and also give his men here some words of encouragement. So I can see the fire service and the police service, a joint team going through the building. Some of the men going into the building itself to commence the investigations. So NADMO, the fire service and also the police service are all here trying to do their own assessment. But briefly, I would want to speak to an eyewitness, that the assembly member for the area, Mr. Akumia, Ernest Akumia, to give me an eyewitness account of what he saw here late last night. Honorable, I'm watching about JoyNews. So, person who painted picture kakama me, and now, Edena is here. Also, I'm watching our bar and didn't know.
Okay, Medas Minya. And they see around 11 p.m. and Numreno. Nyan class a jato police quarters here. Intino Timemufos at an omon idea, be by some of the man who didn't a bababua. The Free Fire Service was just so a by Ombedru, unfortunately, norms, Omuni Acadia also meeting the Abuamaya Doom Jano. enu nti no almost ye de umbetimi bia no omo car nti to mo free another car e ma ne bae enu free car second car dey free for Chrome constituency e ne bae enu bae rese de beja ne bae na aye ama through that no ya hwere police ni baako ene ne yere na akola wadi 4 months.
So basically what he is saying is that yesterday they had information that fire has started here at the police barracks. So he came here with some residents and they tried to douse the flame, but unfortunately they couldn't. So they had to call in the fire service. Now some men from the fire service came in from a Jusso, but they did not have the necessary equipment to douse the flame. As you see, it's a story building, 2-story building. So unless it's a tender that has a ladder, it will be very difficult for the service to reach the fire. So according to him, they were unable to reach the fire. They had to call in another tender. Successfully, when that tender came in, they were able to douse the flame, but it was too late for the couple and their 4-month-old. Now, Honorable, many information me say time now munyamo buy na morashi no, and na munyamo try some meet me a boy radem hona bema no na mutimi tese on also pre in send a picture in the city.
It is on say fire in fire ba smoking so can and smoking so come be na mo aye so disturb nti na be ma no force nka obebie epuno no ti won na bo mu se nipa won nti yenso force say be ye bia say ye be ye afa na ja no na ano odene na yenso ntimi nyina nti ma nipa be 7 na nka ye be se ye ko ho no ye nyina sa akra no bebire kra no manfa main entrance na ye ebi kra e jump from we no na e ba for me.
So according to him, a number of the people within the building, also those who had come out from their homes, tried getting access to the room of Mr. Befi, but unfortunately they couldn't because of the smoke that was emanating from the room was too strong for them to stand. So all efforts that they made here couldn't yield enough results. So that is how Mr. Befi died. Now information reaching me is that even at that time, there were a number of policemen who had come in, that's men from on patrols, had come in to help rescue, but all that effort couldn't yield any positive results. Now, as you can see, there are a number of security personnel in here, people from the NADMO. There is also a team from the Ghana National Fire Service, and I've been able to identify the head of the service here in the Ashanti region. Also, there is the regional police commander, Mr. Ngiza, also on the ground, and they are all here to assess the situation ahead of the coming of the Inspector General of Police, who I learn should be here any moment from now.
For other injuries, what are the degrees? How are the injuries looking like for the other people who are also on that floor?
So far, from my own investigation on the ground, we've not been able to identify anybody who was injured through the process. But the information I have is that the other rooms, the people within the rooms could hear of the fire early enough to be able to leave their rooms before the fire could spread to their various rooms. The information we have is now there are 3 people who have died. That is Mr. Befi, who was a police officer, a sergeant for that matter, and he was also a member of the police anti-robbery team, together with his wife and 4-month-old baby.
Interesting. Okay, so kindly fill us in when the IGP comes and any other development that comes in the course of the day. So that's my colleague there joining us from Kumasi, Nanaya Ojima, there to tell us, give us an update on that incident at Promase in the Ashanti region. But let's return to the bondholder story and find out what government can do if the expiration does come off today. Now, you know that the day for government to achieve this domestic debt exchange program to get people to sign on to that program is today. What happens if people do not sign on to that? What becomes of Ghana's IMF deal 2? Richmond Kwame Frimpong is a financial literacy consultant, analyst, and he joins us live with more. Richmond, grateful that you could join us here. First of all, have you signed up for the domestic debt exchange program yourself, and why?
All right, thank you. No, I haven't signed up myself. I'm hoping that the government will take a second look at the term so that we can all agree on next steps.
Is it really the time for you, or it's the conditions associated to the whole program that is preventing you as a bondholder from signing?
Okay, so, I mean, let me even speak further away from myself and just say that, really, I think the government is not against individual bondholders. If you look at the objective of government, I am tempted to believe that probably it's actually in their interest to make sure that individual bondholders and any bondholder, I mean, is happy with whatever term they have. Why? Because if this is not handled in a certain way, government is going to really struggle in how they survive in terms of their revenues that are taken from the debt market. And so I think it's in their interest to make sure this goes well. Having said that, if you ask me, I would say I think it's a good feedback the individual bondholders, and not just them, any other grouping in the whole asset class has given to government to really take a second look at the terms, because it appears the terms are quite disruptive for people's incomes and their balance sheet, i.e. private or public, and it's something they have to take a second look at and see if there is another option outside of this universe that can help them achieve their goal of building a sustainable kind of debt program.
Okay. Now, today happens to be the expiration date for government's invitation to bondholders. What do you make of the situation from where you sit, now that bondholders say we will not sign on to this program?
It appears that would shoot down government's ability to meet the minimum requirements for the success of the exchange program. And so at this time, I'm probably predicting and I'm probably guessing that the government should now be taking another data analytics of the options they have. And at this moment, really, it will be really difficult to get a pass rate of about, I think, 80% or so, from whichever category, because then as long as there is a way out for some segment of the creditor-investor community, almost everybody will probably give an excuse why they cannot take it. So it's two things. The government should be exploring seriously, aggressively, the option with the G20 to do debt forgiveness. And then also at the same time, they should probably take a second look at the terms, maybe the duration, maybe the coupon exemptions or some other thing, and now begin a whole new reconstruction of engagement that can help them become successful, looking at the race for the time for end of February, end of March to get the board approval.
With your knowledge of the sector, where did the government get this whole thing wrong? That has resulted in individual bondholders even saying no to government's invitation.
I would not say wrong per se, but I think really this is a very difficult place to be if you are government. And inversely, it's true for individuals also, and then the creditor investors for the bond instrument. So government finds itself in a position where they are having little or no time to get approval so that the bailout can be successful. And if they don't get that, the whole economy is going to possibly be on its knees. And so that said, on the government part, they are really stricken with a lot of difficulty. Well, on the individual's part too, this year, and since COVID-19, 2019 all throughout now, it hasn't been easy. And so people who have really tried to put money aside into investment instruments have really done well with managing the failing and the reducing disposable income in the face of inflation and other macroeconomic indicators that are not doing so well to put something aside. And all of a sudden, particularly for the case of Ghana, coming all the way from the corrections we had to do in the financial services sector, where people already had been affected badly financially by the corrections that happen. And some are still recovering under that view to now have to face this also. It's also difficult for them to just look on and not do anything. So these are two difficult situations, and it requires very unconventional way so that in the middle, government can achieve its goal. Mind you, if government fails to achieve this goal, everything macroeconomics is going to fail, and it will make nonsense of the bonds, to make nonsense of the investment wealth. And most importantly, it is going to shut down the entire financial ecosystem. And where we have come from as a country to get people to appreciate investing over the years is going to be wiped off. So it's not in government's interest to not to be successful with this. And it's also not in the individual's interest not to help their nation recover. And so government will really have to pay attention to what else they can do. And it comes very, very easily, if possibly difficult politically, but it comes easily on the fiscal side for government to now really look at lean governance and maybe another option on the income side of the fiscal side of government to see what they can do, however difficult it may be. If this is not considered in all the approaches, looking at the multilateral conversations with the debt forgiveness, looking at managing the fiscal space and creating a more space with some austerities on the government side, and then having a thorough conversation through the entire financial ecosystem to make sure that we ring-fence the financial sector from collapsing through this effort, and to get everybody happy to now even think about putting money aside. People are worried. People are asking, so where else can we put money? We need to save all so that we will be able to safeguard the future of the country.
I mean, when we talk about, yes, the macroeconomy will suffer if government doesn't get this. But for people to understand, to really appreciate it, how will people feel it if government fails to get this program through in order to secure an IMF deal by the time they're expecting to?
Right, so let me give an example of how bad the macroeconomics will affect everyone. So pick an item like inflation. It's an offshoot of how deteriorating the economy is getting. And even now at 54, it means whatever you were even making already on your bond is shot in value 54%, even before not talking about losing your coupon. And so what other investment have you done? Is it a fixed deposit? Is it a treasury bill? Treasury bill is at 35, 91 days per annum. And so if you slap 54 against that, it's already negative. If this gets wet and it doubles into the 100, it means you have nothing. You are just holding cash that has no value. That is why it's important to safeguard the macro, because it eats up everything. It's just like culture, eating strategy for breakfast. The macroeconomics, if it's not stabilized, will eat every investment return for breakfast. And that is what we should be keen at doing. But I'm saying that responsibility rests not just on the investor-creditor community, but also on government.
There's been general demand for government to cut down on expenditure as a sure way to better solving this challenge. What's your view to this call, and where should the cutting be focused?
So this is not going to be easy to do. It must be done with data and science. So, for example, the government should be able to now look at its budget at the moment, the 2023 budget, and most importantly, look at the expenditure side, the ones that are not statutory. So every form of expenditure, from emoluments to wherever, that the government can make do without and still be able to anchor the core, and then begin to take them out, particularly if they are discretionary. And many people are pointing to the government machinery itself. I think it's a good call. The government should pay attention to it. If government is able to trim that, it's just going to be inconveniencing for 2 years. And I'm sure 2-3 years, we should be out of that gap and out of that sacrifice. If that is not done, and we look at the investor-creditor community, the consequence is going to be for 15 years. And so that is too much to pay. And so I think government should really look at the 2 years inconvenience that can safeguard almost everything. Give us our financial market. Give us that savings culture. Give us that stability. Give us that bailout and everything. So that when there is even a call to the investor community, institutional or individual, direct or indirect, to now shave off some levels of return to meet up with what the government is doing, it will be a very easy call to make, and it will speed up the process of salvaging the bailout and the economy.
So you also do support the call that the size of government must be reduced in order to help us out of this situation?
Why not, if there is data to prove that it can do something? If for nothing at all, even if it's for the antics, if it's just symbolic, it communicates to the investor community that, look, we are paying something for this. Can you also pay a little to complement what you are doing?
Interesting. So for you, and the way you understand issues about the economy, how fast must government act on this particular development, getting the bondholders to understand or trying to get us an alternative to then get the deal with the IMF? And is there any alternative at all if the individual bondholders decide to hold on to their stance of saying that we will not sign up to this program?
If the bondholders do not, I think by now government should be coming up with another plan and communicate it clearly. I suspect it may, if the individual bondholder is also checking out, then it is difficult for the program to be successful, as the pensions industry has also done the same. So it's going to really be difficult, and it's important that within the time frame of between now and end of February, if there is anything to do, the government should put together some expedition and some detail in terms of revising the term sheet and bringing some attention to how the individuals can now accept some sort of sacrifice, not in this current form. And maybe pay attention. If you look at the term sheet, there is a pointer to treasury bills that can hurt government even before it is active. And so many people are now not even comfortable buying treasury bills. That can also hurt government. So government should really look at this so that if for nothing at all, the fixed income market is ring-fenced, and for nothing at all can leverage on the collection that it is receiving from that market. And at the same time, use high-powered negotiation and conversation to leverage on the debt forgiveness kind of concept. IMF is very particular about Ghana, the World Bank saved, and so we should use that trump card and see how we can get the Chinese government and the American government and the UK government to take a second look at some of the debt, so that we'll know what to do next.
Okay, grateful to you. Richmond Kwame Frimpong is a financial literacy analyst there. Moving on to other stories, Member of Parliament for North Tongue, Samuel Kojo Ablakwa, wants the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SHRAJ, to undertake forensic investigations into underhand dealings at the National Cathedral Secretariat. And according to him, some of the payments the Secretariat paid to some contractors are fraudulent. He spoke on the Super Morning Show on Joy FM Monday.
The company known as JNS Talent Center Limited came up for scrutiny when, during the 2023 budget approval process, the National Cathedral Secretariat claimed to have paid the company some money for what it called contractors' mobilization. We have always known that the only contractor working on the National Cathedral in terms of actual physical construction is Rebade Limited. Rebade being a joint venture of 3 Italian companies, Risani di Eka, Babisotti, and Di Simone. So when we saw JNS Talent Center Limited also receiving payment for contractors' mobilization, certainly we were surprised. It did raise an alarm, and we decided to do some further digging. We have obtained the passport used to register JNS as a director, and the picture is very clear, even though the name is different from Reverend Victor Kusibuatin. We have also obtained other passports, including a diplomatic passport issued as recent as November 2021, which expires in 2026. And the name in the diplomatic passport is not Reverend Victor Kusibuatin, but Kwabna Edujemfi. We discovered that when it came to registering the National Cathedral of Ghana, he used his driving license. And for his driving license, it's the name we all know, Victor Kusibuatin. However, he has 2 different dates of birth. His documents with Victor Kusibuatin, he claims to be born in September 1961. In the other documents, particularly passports, bearing the name Kwabna Edujemfi, He says that he was born in December 1969. So you see a person deliberately trying to create a different identity. This afternoon, I am petitioning SHRAC to commence investigations into this matter under Article 218 of the 1992 Constitution. I am also demanding the immediate resignation of Reverend Victor Kusi-Boateng, who is also known as Comrade Dujenfi, who's never disclosed this to the board. I have the records. At no time did he reveal that he is the same person. And really, why is he creating two personalities? Who is he running from? Who is he hiding from? Why is he violating all our laws? You know, you can't have multiple things. He has it. You know, different dates of birth. I mean, is he wanted? What's going on here? So we clearly need a full-scale forensic probe into this entire... Look, there's just too many scandals around this project. Don't forget that we have not finished understanding the circumstances leading to the siphoning of 28.2 million Ghana cedis to the Nehemiah Group, which the dodgy American charismatic owes.
We've been trying to speak to the National Secretary to get a response, but we've not been successful. When we are, we'll bring that to you in our subsequent bulletins. To other stories now, the New Patriotic Party has started what it calls a reconciliation process that is aimed at mending broken bridges in the party. According to the party, its attempt at breaking the eight will be a mirage if people are still disgruntled after the party's constituency, regional and national elections. Speaking at one of such reconciliation meetings in Cape Coast, General Secretary of the party, Justin Kojo Frimpong, indicated that the healing process that has started will make the party stronger to break the eight.
The General Secretary of the MPP, Justin Kojo Frimpong, was upbeat that the process the party has started will bode well for the party, particularly the party's quest to break the eight.
And you look at the category of people who participated in this reconciliation engagement, it tells you that it's an all-inclusive reconciliation engagement. We had ministers of state, CEOs, members of parliament, constituency chairpersons, former ministers, former appointees, former constituency executives, all partaking in this exercise. And you can tell the level of honesty and genuineness which transpired during the session. At the point in time, we had the regional chairman conceding that he might have erred in one way or the other through his actions and inactions. And if he did, he apologized to everyone who is present and to even those who will hear his voice from near and far. And sometimes in politics, when a person is able to vent out his anger or frustration, is a beginning towards healing whatever problem or issue that the person might have had. And for us, on our part as national officers, coming here also symbolizes our determination to bring peace, to bring stability, and also to make sure that there's a reconciliatory processes throughout the length and breadth of this country. And it's a good initiative, as I indicated. And what is important is the roadmap. This is the first step, and we can't solve all issues today.
Central Regional Chairman of the party, Robert Kutin Jr., underscores the need to discuss the pains of people in the party.
Social wound healing must be deliberate, and it means we must talk about our pains and resolve as a group to let go of them and forge ahead with common purpose and aspiration. Ladies and gentlemen, this affords us the opportunity to right our wrongs, better our rights, reason together as we lace our boots to break the eight.
Transport Minister Opoku Furiasiama, on his part, indicated how valuable the process the party has started is important to the parties.
Because if you have studied the history of this country, so far as the election is concerned, any political party that wins central region wins the election. He cannot do it alone. He thinks that he needs. In 2016, we were united, we won. In 2020, there were some divisions, we couldn't win. So he decided, look, let me call everybody who has held leadership so far as this region is concerned. Former MMDCs, former ministers, current ministers, former deputy ministers, regional executive, everybody who matters in New Patriotic Party, including the national party. The regional chairman brought them here for us to start the reconciliation process, which is the beginning of Break the Eight. And so far as the party reorganization is concerned, he's shown that he has he said it there, that he has reconciled himself and that he appealed to everybody.
The party is confident that the steps that have been taken will prove hugely productive to the cause of the MPP administration as they start the process of electing parliamentary candidates and the flag bearer of the party. Abdullah Osman's reports for Joy News.
Now let's still stay with the MPP because a former Secretary General of the MPP has described as unrealistic proposal for Alan and Bawumia pairing come 2024 elections. Speaking in an interview on the AM show, Nana Oheningto said the presidential candidate ought to have the sole prerogative of choosing whom they want to go with as stipulated by the party's constitution.
Let's have an Alan Bawumia pairing.
Oh, that one, they've asked me several times. I said that is not a realistic proposal.
Why not?
That is not a proposal to be considered. Now, if you look at the party's constitution, the candidate, after being elected, has the constitutional right and privilege to nominate his running mate.
Right.
And then the council endorses it, and then we go. Now, in the case of Nana Akufo-Addo, in 2007, after the primary, 2008, he needed to come up with a running mate. He proposed a name. Most of council members did not support. So then he was not happy, really, but he had to reconsider. Within the period, some members also proposed a name to Nana Akufo-Addo. He didn't like the name. He wasn't happy. There were a lot of backroom discussion. It didn't work. He rejected it. And then enter Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who was not even a member of the party at all. So you can imagine what kind of opposition and reaction. So you couldn't find anybody who is a member, qualified under our constitution. You have to
go outside the party.
5 years, good standing. So no, yes, no, yes. There was a huge.
So on the back of those democratic principles, we should just leave matters.
Wait a second. Yes, wait a second. So then, even when Dr. Bawumia was not a member of the party, after a long discussion, President Kufuor said, look, the constitution says the candidate has a right.
Right.
So let us consider it for him. After all, when he becomes president and he's the vice president, he's the one he's going to work closely with personally. So in that respect, apart from the constitutional stuff, when you pre-arrange, what have you done? You are foisting a running mate on whoever becomes the.
So you agree with former President Kufuor, who says let the democratic principles
exactly,
go.
And it did work. And then also, and then just to finish off with it, you see, when you do that, now you have set what I will consider to be a very dangerous precedent, because once it becomes a precedent, why shouldn't anybody in the future, if it suits them, also refer to it?
Let's just have a partner.
Let the constitution help you.
He says Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia should consider deferring his intention to contest the 2024 presidential election in the wake of the current economic crisis and the many criticisms against him.
Our current government, in terms of the economy, has been directed at the Vice President. And if you hit the streets, you hear a lot of the criticism. As a party person, I would just say that, look, incidentally, the Vice President is still also a bit younger than Alan Kyerematen. He has a bit of time. Two, if it is the case that a lot of the criticism that MPP is facing on the economic front, even the President, people don't even talk about him much, the Vice President. Now, if you go and put that same face on your ballot paper, and you ask the President, the people, majority of whom are apparently complaining about this person, then it means that you are forcing the people that whether they like it or not, they should vote. So you look at the perception, you look at the vibes, you look at the... So I would suggest that in that same vein, and I do agree with the principle that I set, I would say that maybe the Vice President should recede a little bit for now, spend some time, and then that criticism, oh, you have always been the chairman of the EMT. People say, but Alan was a member. Yes, you're a member, you are not chairman. You are not vice president. You are not in that position. So some of these issues, but that will be my suggestion. Of course, nobody can stop anyone who has an
So for you, yes, democratically speaking, we all have that level playing field, so to speak.
I am sure that the criticism that I used
just to get it clear,
John Mahama, right. I'm sure some people might use it also against,
But you are suggesting that on the back of everything that has happened and the negativity and the perception, the vice president should step aside.
That's what my suggestion is. But
and not contest for the flag bearership.
That is my suggestion.
So that's Nana Hininto, who speaks for the Allen camp. We'll take a quick break. We'll return with business. Stay with us here on News Desk.
Hi, welcome to Business. My name is Darryl Kwao. Ecobat Alibet Furniture Ghana says it is poised to support Ghanaian youth with jobs through its technical and vocational training center initiative. This, according to Head of Operations, Fifi Bafo, is to help in the fight against unemployment. He spoke to Joy Business at the grand opening of the company.
Eco Alibet is a partnership deal right now from Alibet Furniture and then Eco Furniture Works here. Right now, what's happening here is we are creating awareness for all our locally made products so that we will have Eco Alibet has become a household name for every home to have a furniture from Eco Alibet. When you do that, basically you're promoting works, the youth in getting employment, you know. Our products seem to be quite low because we use raw materials from our own land, you know. The wood is taken from, obviously, our forest, and then it goes through the processes before you see all these things. So the prices are very low. Quality-wise, we stand out. And then with the style, we have a team that designs, and then obviously it goes through the testing processes before it's displayed out here. So yes, getting or owning a furniture from Eco Alibet today, I encourage Ghanaians to take advantage of the 50% discount right now, So owning a furniture, basically you are promoting a youth, a young man from the street to get employment, you know, because there is a school behind the Eco Alibet collaboration. It's called Ecotech, where we take the youth from scratch and then train them and then employ them. So the more orders we take in, the more jobs we get for the youth. We do wholesale and retail. So those with mini shops who needs to, you know, secure themselves in jobs, they can come and then take orders from us, and then we can help them get employment.
This in the name of God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We count this in the name of God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Alibet, Eco Alibet, officially opened.
Now, Director General of SNIT, Dr. John Ofori-Tenkwa, has cautioned employers to honor the obligations by regularly paying the pension contributions of the employees. According to him, the scheme would take legal action against employers who relent in paying the contributions of their staff.
When you don't play your part, then it makes it difficult for us. Our first option is not to take you to court, and that is what I've been preaching to my staff as DG. Our first option is to get you to understand that what you are required to do is your civic duty as an employer, and it's a responsible thing that you have to do. Make you understand the value that we provide, such as we have provided today, that in these tumultuous times, we are still able to index pensions at an amount that is not too bad. And so, if you understand that, then please, by the 14th of every month, please pay your required contributions. When you do so, we will be best buddies and nobody will come and threaten you with a summons. But when that doesn't happen and we remind you and you turn a deaf ear or a blind eye on it, then we have no choice but to serve you the summons and take you to the courts.
All right, and that's it for business. More news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. The news continues after the break.
So welcome back to the news desk. Now, let's return to our earlier story about the National Cathedral, where the MP for North Tongue, Samuel Okujeto-Ablakwa, is alleging some sort of corruption which has taken place at that secretariat. We've been joined on the line by Dr. Paul Opoku Mensa, who is with the secretariat. He's the head there, for some clarification. Doc, I'm grateful that you could join us. I'm sure you've heard the allegation. What do you make of this allegation?
I think it's one of these the unfortunate sort of developments around this that we place from putting. We've always argued that issues of accountability are critical. I mean, so we can't trivialize those, but we also expect a certain almost credible way of going about it. That you can't peddle accusations without actually asking verification. First, we were the ones who submitted this information to Parliament. We are accounting for the resources that we had gotten from state. And part of that resources had been used for the mobilization of the consultants, the contractors. In August, we had signed the contract, we were supposed to pay them their mobilization, and that was part of the seed money from the state. And the state had actually transferred the money to the Ministry of Finance, but the controller had asked for some time to pay it. We had already kind of postponed this to the contractors. So a board member indicated that, okay, he could help us top up because we had some money, we could just top it up and pay the contractors. The controller had said, this was August 26, 2021. And he says, look, by the latest September 15th, we really should get the money because I think there was issues with payroll that he needed to do. And so August 26th, we wrote formally, I talked to the chairman that, look, we will be able to get some top-up to be able to pay the contractors because it was a contractual obligation, once you sign the contract, to pay them their mobilization. And we had postponed that. So we asked the board member, and he says, okay, send the letter, the application through my company. And we did, which was August 26th, 2021. And so on August 27th, 2021, the amount of 2.6 million was transferred to the National Cathedral account. And we actually got the money a bit earlier. So September 8th, we transferred the money back to JNS, which are transferred. And all this is documented that we included that because we wanted to really make sure that, look, everything is accounted for. And then all of a sudden, you pick up this information from the information we had submitted. So it's not like there's anybody's intercepting some information. It's what we have submitted to Parliament and says we had made this illegal payment to the JNS and put it under contractor mobilization. And we actually said, look, the letter we had written was specific for the loan, that it was to top up to pay the contractors for their mobilization. I mean, so that is where you account for it. Our concern really is not this issue of accountability. The nature of this project would always invite this critique, to almost kind of examination. And we welcome it. It's critical that this project be developed, be implemented with rigor, credibility, and accountability. But this idea of members of parliament, a member of parliament, selectively using information which is verifiable. I mean, I think that's the key issue for us. That, I mean, this you can trace. It's just a documentary trail that you can always ask for verification We sent information. Parliament wanted further clarification. They write to you. You go back to clarify. So if the MP didn't understand an issue in the accounting, because in an accounting, somebody even an auditor account, how many pages? You can't explain everything, so they'll call you to clarify. We never called for clarification, and it simply goes ahead to accuse. I mean, this is a very serious accusation that you had paid a company for nothing, and yet the paper trail.
Okay, so Doc, just for clarification, what was the purpose of the transfer of 3.5 million cedis?
We don't have 3.5 million. We've never had any 3.5 million. 2.6. We had asked for 2.6 million, and it was unfair to us, and we transferred 2.6. Now, we don't have any idea about 3.5. I heard another saying that that company received some payments of 3.5 for work done for the World Bank, but that has nothing to do with National Cathedral. I mean, it's a board member saying, I can give you a soft loan quickly to make your payments to the contractors. So
the board member owns JNS?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's so his company.
Okay.
And apparently, and then they say, well, the company received some money from World Bank project, but that's not, what has that got to do with the cathedral?
So was this loan given with interest, and how much was the interest?
No. You read the letter. I mean, we sent all the documentation out. 26th August 2021, we wrote the letter, the formal letter requesting that, because he says, look, this is a crisis situation. I can give you just this top-up. I mean, there's no interest, nothing. And then September 8th, you see, that's what I'm saying, the documentation trail is there. Normally, I mean, they really understand the deep mistrust in our political system. But nonetheless, particularly when it comes from Parliament, you expect a certain due process. And that is one, you get suspicious, you ask for clarification and verification. That, you are not satisfied with that, then you move on to accusation. But this idea of picking information, and we wrote for, and I think we sent that information around. I can send it back to you again, the letter on August 26th.
That's fine, I understand. But quickly, why the multiple identification for the board member of such a...
I don't know. I mean, you see, that's the whole thing. What does the cathedral got to do? I have a board. I have to work with a board. I mean, you see, those are the things. We are mixing different things.
Okay, I'm grateful that Dr. Opoku Mensa there. And that's how we wrap up today's bulletin. There's more news on myjoyonline.com. My name is Samuel Kojo. Please do enjoy the rest of our shows. Have a great morning.